Papa Banger, Maine. Those Friday night lights at those hometown games, man, they mean everything.
Mr. Al Cardenas, ladies and gentlemen,
West LA,
a great chairman. Thank you all. It is great to be back in Florida, and an honor, obviously, to be back at CPAC. It's a place where the seeds of conservative ideas are sown and tended, invigorating our party, and I might add, in doing so, the health of our country as well. And it's good to be with friends. Let me share that with you. You know, when I had the last privilege of being in your company this last February, I was just one of many governors, millions of Americans, who were deeply concerned about the federal government that had grown too big and too brazen, that willfully neglected its constitutional duties, and I might add was assuming some that was never supposed to have to begin with. Struggling for stability, this country that was struggling for stability on the seas of an economic storm like a ship without a rudder. You know, in the intervening months, little has changed to right America's course. Millions of people remain unemployed. The number of Americans on food stamps has reached all-time high. American credit rating was downgraded for the first time in the history of this country. Washington's insatiable desire to spend our children's inheritance on these failed stimulus plans and other misguided economic theories has given us record debt and left far too many unemployed. Nearly 2.5 million of our citizens have lost jobs under this administration. $4 trillion in debt has been added to our children's burden. 1 in 6 work-eligible Americans cannot even find a job. Now, in Washington, they call this a recovery. In the rest of America, we call it a failure. Our president, the great promiser of hope and change, he has delivered neither. What he's delivered, Americans don't want. His latest idea is one of the most offensive to date. This week, President Obama had the audacity to propose to veterans that they should be required to pay $200 when they turn 65 years old in order to get their Medicaid benefits. That they should pay higher prescription drug. Mr. President, the men and women of our military who have served our country with courage every single day have already sacrificed enough. The least you could do, Mr. President, is to have the courage to cut a government bureaucracy instead of cutting their benefits. This president says it takes shared sacrifice to get our economy moving, but I want to say it again, Mr. President. Our veterans have already sacrificed enough for this country. Leave them alone. You know what's especially bothersome to me is that consider the waste that we know exists in government today. You know, there was a report revealed this last week that bureaucrats in Washington were spending money on $16 muffins. Yeah, go figure that one. You know what? You want to be in the muffin business, don't you? Don't tell me there's not waste to be cut. And don't ask us for more of our money, Mr. President. We can't afford 4 more years of the high unemployment, of the failed stimulus, of the record debt, the misplaced priorities. It's time for a change. And when I say change, I'm not talking about the rhetoric of change. I'm talking about the record of change. As conservatives, we know that values and vision matter. It's not who is the slickest candidate or the smoothest debater that we need to elect. We need to elect the candidate with the best record and the best vision for this country. The current occupant of the White House can sure talk a good game, but he doesn't deliver. Matter of fact, remember President Clinton? Man, he could sell ice cubes to Eskimos. And the next day be against ice cubes. The alternative is candidates who stick to principle, stand their ground because they believe in something. Our shared conservative values are worth fighting for. We don't need to back down. We need to push through to that shining city on a hill. As President Reagan said, we need bold colors, not pale pastels. Governor, I have led based on a few guiding principles. Number one is don't spend all the money. Have some fiscal restraint. Keep your taxes low, a regulatory climate that is fair and predictable, and reform the legal system to create jobs. We passed medical reform that attracted 20,000 new doctors to Texas, and I might add a loser pay law to level the legal playing field. I've cut taxes that equal better than $14 billion worth of tax relief since becoming governor. And one of the ways that I will revive the economy of this country when I'm president is by scraping that thing called Obamacare. See, the model for socialized medicine has already been tried, and it failed, not just in Western Europe, but in Massachusetts. And I'm not alone in that thought. Mr. Romney's top economic advisor published a study last year that said that the Massachusetts plan, quote, was the main components are the same as Obamacare. In fact, he said what's happening in Massachusetts gives us a window into this country's future. Last week we got that glimpse of America's future under Obamacare. According to a study by the Beacon Hill Institute, Governor Romney's misguided health care mandate, it slowed income growth and cost Massachusetts 18,000 jobs. If Romney Care cost Massachusetts 18,000 jobs, just think what it will do to the rest of this country if it were Obamacare is applied to this country. Romney Care drove up private insurance costs by $4.3 billion in Massachusetts. It cost taxpayers in Florida and across this nation another $4 billion in Medicaid and Medicare cost. Obamacare is expected to cost $27 billion more dollars in my state over the next decade. Government-mandated, government-run health care costs too much. It kills too many jobs. It gets in between you and your doctor, whether it's passed in Massachusetts or Washington, D.C. And as president, I will oppose any big government health care plan that costs jobs and raises the tab on taxpayers. As your president, I want to make Washington, D.C. as inconsequential in your life as I can make it. We have tried 2.5 years of government trying to stimulate the economy. It's time to let the private sector grow the economy. We need a flatter, broader, fair federal tax code. We need to restore investor confidence by eliminating federal regulations from those activist agencies like the EPA. We need to cut the spending, reduce the debt, so that our children inherit a country as promising as the one that our parents gave us. You see, I grew up, as Al shared with you, in a small farming community west of Fort Worth, Texas. We didn't spend a lot of time looking around for government to help us out. If a neighbor was sick, we all pitched in together to gather their crops or manage their livestock. In my case, we didn't even have indoor plumbing until I was 5 years old. The son of tenant farmers, I'll promise you one thing, I wasn't born with 4 aces in my hand. And like a lot of you, I viewed the pathway to success as the product of hard work. And we continue to reject the idea that Washington is our caretaker. The nanny state was not needed for our forefathers who carved out of this wilderness, this greatest nation that the earth has ever known. The nanny state didn't groom our greatest generation, my father's generation, who freed millions of people from oppression during World War II. The nanny state didn't inspire innovation and technology, the creation of wealth, or the entrepreneurial spirit in this country. If we want to get America working again, we need Washington to get out of the way. And with your help and people like you all across this great country, that is exactly what we will do. We will get America working again and take this country back to the great values and the principles that have made America wonderful. God bless you. Thank you all for coming out and being with us today.
Texas, the top of Bangor, Maine, those Friday night lights at those hometown